Right, good morning. Good morning from Australia, where it is currently something like 2 a.m. and that's why I'm recording this. I wanted to wish everyone well with the way this meeting goes. I have been the chair of the executive committee for quite some while and through some of the most complicated times of CIG, and I wanted to let everyone know a little bit about the work that we've been doing to establish leadership going forwards and the vision that has come through for CIG4 as a result of some of the work that we've been doing, looking out to the community. First of all, perhaps a little bit of a retrospective. I wanted to just look back at the purpose of CIG, why CIG was created and the extent to which it's sort of succeeded. And CIG came into being really with this quite grand vision of trying to modernize the approach that people took to geodynamics software in the broadest possible sense, right? And to the way they did computation. And that's really because people had a different view of what was necessary, right? We write our own codes. Do we need to share codes? Yes or no? Do we need to show people the codes? Do we need to benchmark? Which benchmarks are the right ones? Which methods are right? Do we need more than one method? There were many individual codes, many coding heroes. And the idea behind CIG was, well, maybe we need more community and fewer individuals. We need to keep things to standards. We'd be able to set standards for quality of codes. We need to be able to see what the code was like on a given day when something was run or published. The codes need to be properly documented. So in a sense, CIG became a community of practice and not just a collection of codes. And we're very fortunate to have two very visionary leaders during that period who really established this sense of change from everyone goes their own way to everyone works together. Okay. So now it's worth thinking about what CIG looks like today, right? So CIG has been very, very successful actually at making that transformation, transforming the expectations of the community. The quality of software is very high and people expect it to be. People expect there to be documentation. They expect if they find a bug that someone's going to verify that and maybe even fix it. And if they fix it, they're going to take that fix and it's not going to be a problem for anyone else. All right? We expect to see the codes properly benchmarked. We expect that the codes will be open for collaboration, that if you come up with a better way of doing something, people will start using it. Okay? This is not something that we always could guarantee. There's a general preference for open source. In fact, that's kind of something that's been driven very hard from this community. And in another sense of sort of steady progress, that things are getting better, that you're not going backwards. The sort of establishment of procedures that make sure that things just work, right? And that's a different model from a visionary transformation model, but it's a really important one. It's also what people expect to see. So that's kind of what CIG looks like today, actually. Not making lots of changes, but actually making sure that things that we currently have are not regressing. A typical way of approaching a code is also a good way of approaching other things in life. So then we look ahead and say, well, CIG obviously has gone through a transformation. We had a very sad and unexpected loss of our sort of one of our most visionary leaders then in Louise Kellogg. And after the initial shock of that, it was important to think about how to take CIG into the future, and particularly since CIG is due for a funding renewal. Okay, in the time that CIG has transformed its own community, I think by example, it has also helped transform a much wider community, and many other groups now exist, and those groups have similar challenges to the ones that CIG is facing in terms of both updating the community and keeping the community on board with the new ways of doing things, but also funding challenges and challenges to reach out and broaden the community. We don't even really know what the ideal university environment is going to look like given the shocks we've had this year. So there's a good question as to what CIG should do next. Okay, and in thinking about what that should be, has been one of the key activities of the executive over the past 3 years, really. I mean, thinking about how to go forwards it was very much the forefront of Louise's vision, and post Louise, it's been even more at the forefront. What do we do to keep CIG relevant and important? A number of things have happened, including reaching out multiple times to the community. And the most recent effort was to set up a community sort of engagement committee to look at leadership. That was led by Carolina Lithgow-Bertoloni, and I'm hoping that she is available to answer some questions about this, but she'll also find other members of the executive and other members of that committee will be available. And all have participated in these discussions quite some length. So there's actually some things to think about when you start thinking about change in this way, and that is, what should CIG do and how should it do it? Do we need new leadership, or is the leadership just fine and we need a sort of more interesting governance model that will evolve to reflect the way in which the community is changing and the demands that the community is making have changed? What is the role of transformation of the discipline, and what is the role of having a steady hand? Those things are somewhat in tension, and do we want them to be in tension? It's sort of unavoidable. Can you do both? Can you pick what should be done? Another aspect is, are we as CIG pursuing a broader, more inclusive community, or approaching the latest and greatest technical challenges and going for those? Okay, those are things that essentially the community has to answer, and the leadership that is put in place is kind of emerges from that. Okay, but the leadership is also trying to make those answers come forwards, and that's something that I think CIG faces in the next little while. So I tried to summarize that by saying, well, okay, in some respects, CIG has been so successful at transforming community expectations that this is a bit of a problem. There is really a question of building on the successes or consolidating all those successes, and how to do that. So the search committee for the sort of new leadership approach did hold a completely open search for ideas, and so many ideas came in. I'm very pleased that there was such broad support from the community and from people actually who would be in collaboration positions, people from other groups who were interested in seeing CIG exist so they can, rely on it and build upon it and work with CIG. Okay. One of the things that came through very strongly was a very, very strong focus on making the community a much broader one. So increasing diversity of participation, and not just diversity and sort of individual diversity of individuals who are sort of not from the traditional CIG demographic, which I probably don't need to tell you what that is. CIG has been very good at being sort of broadly inclusive, but there are many people who are not able to participate in CIG, and that includes many people from institutions that are not, that just don't have the time and the resources to be part of CIG's activities, and that's got to change, right? But there's also a strong sense that technical expertise in chasing grand challenge problems is a vital thing that CIG needs to do. Okay, so there is a bit of a tension in the demands. What also comes through is that people really appreciate and love the community that has been put together and the model of CIG that exists. Okay, so it may be necessary to rethink what the leadership is, whether we are looking for a sort of a strong visionary to help transform the community into the next level, or whether the steady hand is a more appropriate model for CIG, in which CIG is then a sort of available building block for other more visionary kind of broader umbrella organizations or something. Okay, I don't think that's my place to direct that in any way, and I would like the community really to reflect on that, because that's actually what's come out of the process, that there is this sort of real tension between the directions that CIG could take, and that creative thinking would allow either of those to work and be justifiable in the basis of a renewal. But given the way that timing is for that renewal, the community needs to make those choices relatively quickly. If I can briefly summarize then, one thing that seems to have come through, that's sort of a single sentence that summarizes all of the work that the executive and the search committee has done. I think it would be this, that a transformation to the science is happening, and CIG needs to be part of that transformation. It needs to be of the right form to make that transformation happen. So I wish you well with this meeting and thinking about how CIG goes forwards, and I thank everyone for being so supportive of CIG over so many years, and for continuing that support going ahead. Thank you.